Hey guys, so it's October, and if you're like me when the weather starts getting chilly, you might like to cuddle up with a nice blanket, some hot apple cider, and a good book. Preferably a spooky book. So, I wanted to talk to you guys today about some of the books I've read throughout this year that might help you get in the spooky season kind of mood. So, over the last, I don't know, 6 years, my husband and I have been kind of going through True Blood, the show, pretty half-heartedly after the second season because it just gets weirder and less interesting as it goes on. And so I decided to finally pick up the first book and give it a go, see how it was like compared to the show. So, this year I read Dead Until Dark by Charlene Harris. So Dead Until Dark is the first in the Sookie Stackhouse series. There are so many books in this series. I have no idea how many there actually are. So if vampires is your thing, maybe give the Sookie Stackhouse series a try. I'll be honest, it was really not my thing. It did stick pretty close to like how the first season went down, almost beat for beat, except if you've watched the show, Tara doesn't exist, and Lafayette is barely even there, which sucks because Lafayette's like my favorite character. So I don't know, the book, it just, I don't know. It was kind of lackluster. It just, I don't know, maybe if I had read the book before seeing the show, I would like it better. But I don't know. I got done and I was like, yeah, I don't really have any interest in reading the second book. I mean, maybe someday I'll get a bug and want to like see how the rest of the series played out compared to how the show played out. Kind of like with Game of Thrones. But I don't know. It did not capture my attention. But maybe if you're a vampire person, which I mean, in theory I like vampires, but I've just never been, I guess, huge into them. I don't know. I would maybe give it 2.5 stars. I don't know. Am I rating books now? I've never done that before. So next I wanted to talk about Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. It's a classic. And I mean, there have been so many film iterations based off this book. So I mean, going into reading the book, what do you even expect? It was the first like science fiction horror novel written by a woman. Mary Shelley was so far ahead of her time. It's insane. And honestly, the book it's impressive. If you've seen any Frankenstein movie, you're not really gonna know what to expect reading the book, because I think the closest film adaptation is the one directed by Kenneth Branagh. But even that differentiates a bit, I believe. I need to rewatch that. But it's a very complex novel where, I mean, there's some suspense and, I mean, there's horror, but it's not especially scary or frightening. But it's very complex where, I mean, honestly, you're on the monster side. Victor Frankenstein is kind of awful, and you're kind of like cheering for the monster to catch up with Victor Frankenstein and kill him. So you kind of, but I mean, there's also gray areas too. Like the monster he's murdering people, but at the same time, he was created, and then immediately his creator showed horror at the sight of him and abandon him. So you're kind of like, oh, okay, that's not the best, way to start your life. So I kind of get why you might, not have any moral compass, You don't have very good foundations for your life. So yeah, it was a very complex, good sci-fi horror book, and I liked it. So I would definitely recommend it. It's a little hard to get through at first because it's like a journal entry within a journal entry telling this story, because it doesn't even start out from Victor Frankenstein's perspective. So it's a little slow going at first, but we get there eventually. Next, I want to talk about The Elementals by Michael McDowell. This is a book that my husband recommended to me, and I absolutely loved it. I want to check out more of his books. This book was truly like, holy crap, well, this is like scary. He paints some very like terrifying visuals without it being just an outright like paranormal book. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Just there's things that you're like, well, did they actually see that? Did that actually happen? And then there's moments where like, this can't actually be happening. Like, it's so in your face and terrifying. And yeah, it's really good. I highly recommend it. And from what my husband has said, who's currently reading another one of his books, his other work is like that too. So I'm excited to check out more of his work. Next, let's talk about Ghost Summer by Tananarive Due. This book was free on Audible, and I was like, okay, whatever, let's try it. Oh, this book. This author, amazing. So this author was like, I just want to write a short story about every single horror genre there is. Let's do werewolves, let's do the apocalypse, let's do ghosts, let's just cover all our bases. And like kind of hint that everything's connected. And oh my gosh, this work of literature is just, it blew my mind. It's a book of short horror stories, and it is so good. Oh, I loved it, and I want to look in to see if this author has more work, because if it's anything like Ghost Summer, I need it in my life. Alright, next let's talk about Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. So I think this book became kind of popular after like the second or third season, probably the second season of Stranger Things, when like the 80s nostalgia was really coming back. I remember seeing it then. But it took me until literally a couple of weeks ago to read this book, and I read it in like a day and a half. It was so good. It takes place in the 80s, and you have these two best friends, and there's like a night of kind of a little light LSD use and partying between these four friends, and the one girl gets like possessed, and it's just her best friend watching her changing and affecting their other friends, and it is so good, and it has some truly just terrifying moments in the book that like you picture them in your head and you're like, like it was very good, and the ending was, I mean, more realistic, I feel like, than probably what you want. Like, it was very bittersweet, but very, I feel like, realistic. I saw that they're making this into a movie. It's coming out, I think, this month, and I was so excited to see that, and then I watched the trailer, and I'm like, oh, okay, because it does not, I don't know, I feel like they're going for more of like a goofy fun time. And I don't feel like that's kind of how the book felt, so I feel like they're just not going to capture like the essence of the book, and that makes me sad. So I don't know. I'll probably check it out, but I'm probably not gonna like it. I shouldn't go into it with that attitude, but alright. I hate to be this girl. God, I hate that I'm being this basic. Oh, and everyone is reading this book. It was free on Audible. I had like 4 people at work reading it, and I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. And I did. And I loved it. But the reason it's on this list is because there were some moments in this book that genuinely freaked me out. Like, it was genuinely creepy. And I mean, there's like some good suspense, good thrill. So I am adding this year to my list Verity by Colleen Hoover. It's the only book of hers I've read. I did thoroughly enjoy it. It kept me hooked the whole way through. And yeah, there are moments in the book that are genuinely creepy. So like, I mean, if ghosts or slashers or paranormal or I don't know what else is on here, vampires, if those aren't your thing and you are more into like, I don't know, romance or spicy novels, I guess. This wasn't even like that spicy. Like, and you're looking to dip your toe into like spooky novels, this would be a good one to do. Yeah. Alright, I have 2 books left for you. And they're by the same author. So, at the beginning of this year, I sat down and I read, after watching it last October, I read The Amityville Horror by Jay Anson. And I don't know what this is. I found this out about myself with horror movies and books that were created in the 70s. I don't know what it is, but I love them. They're my favorite. Like, I just, or modeled, because there's a horror movie I watched earlier this year. I think it's called The Devil Inside, and it was filmed like within like the last 4 years, but it takes place in the 70s, and they capture the vibe so perfectly that it feels like it was made in the 70s. And I love Black Phone. Black Phone is another good example. And I just love it so much. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's because I feel like I should have been born in the 70s or what it was. But books and movies from the 70s, they have this feel about them. And I just like connect with it. I don't know. So I read The Amityville Horror. And I loved it. Oh my God. If you like the Amityville Horror movie, read the book. It is so much better. Like, it's scarier. It's better. It's better. I loved it so much. And then I found out that Jay Anson, who wrote The Amityville Horror, who thought he was reporting on a true story, a true haunting that this family went through, then of course found out he had written a work of fiction because it wasn't true. I guess because he was like in his 80s, he went, oh, I kind of liked writing horror. So before he died, like right before he died, he wrote one more book. And that was 666. And this book, I don't understand how this has not been made into a movie. It's this tiny little book. And it's just, I loved it. I had such a hard time putting this book down. It was so good. It had me so captivated. The characters, everything that was happening, the pictures he would just paint in your mind, the scenery, it was all so good. And I just don't understand how this has never been made into a movie. Especially with how successful Amityville Horror has been. It's been remade. Well, okay, there's the original and it was remade. And it's had how many, like, sequels and, like, B-movie, like... I wouldn't call them sequels, but, you know. But this has never been touched. And I don't understand how. It's so good. I don't know. Blows my mind. But I highly recommend, if you haven't, read Amityville Horror, read 666. They're so good. Yeah. He did some good work before he passed away. And I'm sad that he did not have more time to write more fiction. Because I think he was like a journalist or something before he wrote Amityville Horror. Alright guys, those are my suggestions for October. If you want to curl up with a good book and a comfy blanket for some downtime and get into the spooky mood. Of course, if you're not into reading and you like podcasts, I listen to the Don't Sleep podcast. If you're into like horror movies, Fright Mike podcast. I love them. That's Fright Mike and my brother's podcast. That's a random movie podcast. So that is all I listen to at the gym. I don't listen to music. I listen to podcasts. I haven't found any other like horror podcasts that I really like. I've tried a lot of them and they just, I don't know, none of them really hold up to like the No Sleep podcast. Alright you guys, I hope you liked this video. Drop any spooky books that you guys are reading or into. I mean, I can't ever recommend Christopher Pike enough. I read a lot of him in high school. And of course I'm so excited for Midnight Club with Mike Flanagan directing. So that hits October 7th, so I'm so excited. But yeah, let me know what you guys are reading to put you in the spooky mood, and let me know if you've read any of these and what you guys think. So I love you guys so much, and I will see you later.